It all started when this guy asked me out at Starbucks. I was waiting for my drink, and this extremely handsome but super arrogant man came up to me talking all kind of game. But I wasn't having it. He was just too much, and I'm not the type of girl who's into those kinds of guys. He had been watching me for a while, and I think he even followed me in. He didn't take the hint and said something really stupid about my body. I was extremely irritated as I needed to call my best friend before work, and this guy just messed it up. So, I really laid into him and said something really mean like, "God, you're boring AF, why don't you crawl back under your slimy bridge, you effing creep? What are you? Like a pervy stalker? You're probably some peeping Tom who likes watching little girls sleep." It was meant to get rid of him. His whole demeanor changed. His face distorted into something incredibly scary, but then somehow twisted back into a charming smile. He then turned and left, but stopped and turned back to say to me, "I'll be seeing you." And with that he sauntered off. I didn't think anything of it and went about my day. That night, I came home to my small one-bedroom house that my mom left me. I got ready for bed and went to sleep. I don't know what woke me, but I opened my eyes. There was a window above my bed. I had my drapes completely pulled open as this window faced the backyard. That night there was a full moon, and the moonlight spilled into my room. But along with it was a deep shadow that fell across me. The shadow was a silhouette of what appeared to be a man watching me from outside the window. His facial features obscured in the shadows. I lay there frozen with fear. The silhouette didn't move for what seemed like an eternity. It then moved off, confirming that it was a person. I quickly sat up and picked up my cell phone and dialed 9***. But the call wouldn't go through. I tried again, and again. The call just wouldn't go through. I got out of bed and went into the living room. I tried to turn on the lights in the hallway, but they didn't click on. I tried the light in the living room. It also didn't switch on. I then heard a knock on the front door. I felt cemented to the hardwood floor. It then knocked again. I didn't move or say a word. It then pounded hard. Bang, bang, bang. I then yelled, "Get the F away from my place. I'm calling the cops." I tried again, but still the call wouldn't go through. The silhouette then walked by the front window, then the side window. It was walking to the back of my house where I had a back door in my kitchen. I peered into the kitchen from the living room. I then ran in and grabbed a cutting knife and ran back out. The back door had a window in the door. It had blinds which were closed tight. I stared at the back door. All was quiet. I then saw its doorknob jingle. It then stopped. I held my breath and clutched my knife, wishing I had bought a gun. The person then smashed through the door's window. I bolted to the front door, grabbed my keys, flung it open and fled. I heard the man break through the back door and take chase after me. Outside, I found my car was gone. I couldn't see it anywhere. I saw my neighbor's door open and his light on. My neighbor Jerry was the nicest man. He was in his 70s and had lost his wife. He was all alone too, and I felt like he kind of adopted me as his granddaughter. I quickly ran to his door. I yelled, "Jerry, help me, please help me." I looked back as my stalker exited out of my front door. I then made the decision to go into Jerry's place. I closed the door and locked it behind me. I yelled for Jerry. "Jerry, it's Alice, your neighbor. Please help me." I went to Jerry's room to find a black tarp covering the bed and Jerry's cut up and bloody dead body resting on it. I gasped and held back tears. I then heard the front door open and slam shut. I heard keys jingle. Heavy footsteps walked down the hall towards me. I went to the window and found bars outside it. I didn't remember seeing any bars on Jerry's windows. I turned to Jerry's bathroom and tiptoed in. I closed the bathroom door behind me. I listened to the footsteps entering the bedroom. I realized that there was another door next to me. I opened it and scurried into another bedroom. I heard the bathroom door open behind me. The man was following me. I then hurried out that room and back into the hallway. I sprinted to the front door. Over my shoulder, I could sense him chasing me. I got to the front door and tried to open it. But that's when I realized there was a lock on the door that was reversed, and you needed a key to get out. The man grabbed me and flung me to the floor. He was dressed in all black and wore a creepy demon mask. He stood there for a moment. He didn't have any weapons. I waved my knife at him and screamed for him to stay the F away from me. I asked him why he was doing this and he didn't answer. He then lunged at me. I tried to slash him, but he blocked me and hit me in the face. He slammed my hand into a dresser and I dropped the knife. He then started choking me. I tried to fight back, kicking him and screaming into his ears. But his hands wrapped around my neck, and he was incredibly powerful. He used his elbows and knees to block and kick me. I knew I couldn't win. Something clicked inside me. I needed to play dead. I stopped fighting. I then let my body go limp. And thankfully, he underestimated my resolve. After I stopped fighting, he choked me a little longer, but then let go and let my body fall to the floor. At that moment, I was barely conscious. I had to cough, but I held it in. I knew if I coughed or breathed too loudly, I would be done for. My body kicked into protection mode and shut it down. I slowly controlled my breathing. Even though my lungs burned so badly, I lay there listening to see what the man was going to do. I knew that my knife was nearby. I knew I only had one chance. In a quick bolt, I got up, grabbed the knife, and rushed him with everything I had left. His back was to me, and he seemed to be getting something out of the bag. He turned, surprised, and tried to twist away, but I became a human spear and ran my knife into him. It landed in his side, all the way in. We fell over and I quickly rolled away and pulled out the knife. As he writhed around in pain, I got up and saw him. It was the man from the coffee shop. I ran to the back door in the kitchen. It also had a reverse lock on it, but it had a window as well. I then picked up a kitchen chair and used it to smash through the window. I then quickly climbed out. I ran down the street as far as I could. At some time, I got to the nearest gas station, which was open. I was bloody, bruised, and had no shoes. The attendant called the cops. Once they arrived, I told them everything. The cops didn't find the man at Jerry's house. They also didn't find Jerry's body. They never did. I told them about my encounter at Starbucks. They got Starbucks surveillance video. But even with his blood and picture, they didn't know who the man was, and even if the encounter was connected, I knew they were connected. They never found the man. My car was discovered a few blocks over. Its ignition was hot-wired. They think he used some kind of device to block my cell phone signal from working. I moved out of my house and put it up for sale. I've been staying with friends, never staying in the same place for too long, and seeing a therapist. I have nightmares every night. I realized what a naive life I had lived. About a month ago, I saw on the news that a girl was murdered, and they found her in a neighbor's house. They were looking for the neighbor and suspected the neighbor of the killing. Some of the locks on the door were reversed. It's been a few weeks now and they haven't found the neighbor. I don't think they ever will. I feel so sorry for Jerry. I'm seriously thinking of changing my name now and moving to another state on the other side of the country. Wouldn't you? He was always so petrified. He used to climb into bed with my wife and me every night. Mummy, Daddy, I'm afraid of the dark. This had become a routine. We tried everything lying in bed with him until he fell asleep. Night lights, teddy bears, nothing worked. I tried to convince my wife on many occasions to just let him sleep with us at night. But she refused and said it was a phase. We had to be consistent. This habit broke when we decided to move from our 2-bedroom flat into our first real home. We had been saving for this home for almost 10 years, and it was everything we had dreamed of. Real wood flooring, rooms so spacious that if you yelled, it would echo, and a huge back garden. The first night we went to bed, I was sure our son would climb into bed with us. I was stunned when we didn't wake up until 9 a.m., and he was still asleep. I sat at the table, sipping my morning coffee and reading the paper when he came toddling downstairs. "Good morning, buddy. I see you slept all night in your big boy bed by yourself. I couldn't contain my excitement. It may sound ridiculous, but I was worried this would go on forever. He let out a little chuckle. Don't be silly, Daddy. I wasn't alone. I was instantly confused. Did my wife sneak into his room and sleep with him? Did he get into our bed and then go back in the morning? What do you mean? Son, I didn't hear you once. My friend was with me, he said with a huge grin on his face. Daddy, can I watch Bluey while eating breakfast this morning? He innocently asked, giving puppy dog eyes. No. Son, we've just got that sofa, and I don't want it covered in eggs. Suddenly, what he had said a moment before dawned on me. Son, what friend? I asked, puzzled. My friend, he smiled. Please, Dad. I won't get eggs anywhere. I promise, he begged. Not today, little one. Your mum would go crazy at me. Maybe tomorrow. Oh, he frowned, slumping down at the table. He began munching his breakfast, eating as fast as he could so he wouldn't miss the new episode. Later that day, I spoke to my wife and told her about what our child had said earlier. She told me not to overthink it. If anything, it's a good thing that he has an imaginary friend, especially if it helps him go to sleep. I agreed and continued with his bedtime routine. I couldn't believe it when I woke up, and he wasn't sandwiched it between us for the second night in a row. Again, I went downstairs to have my coffee and read my newspaper. Suddenly, he came flying down the stairs. Daddy, can we go to the park today? He said, as if he had just come up with the greatest idea ever. Of course we can. I laughed slightly, especially since you slept all alone again. He looked at me, confused. Daddy, I've told you. I'm not alone. My friend is with me. I decided to entertain him. Oh yeah. What does this friend look like? His face brightened up again. I can't see much of his face, because he only comes out of the wardrobe when it's dark. He has a big smile and long fingernails. He taps them on the edge of the bed to help me sleep. Needless to say, I was slightly disturbed. That sounded terrifying to me. But kids are imaginative and say all kinds of crazy things. Wow, he sounds cool. What's his name? He told me not to tell you. He sang in a cheeky way, as if he thought it was funny that I wasn't allowed to be in on the secret. Come on, tell me, and I'll let you watch Bluey while you eat your breakfast today. I smirked, thinking I had won the war. Really? He exclaimed. Then suddenly, he paused. His face went blank. He turned around and looked towards the ajar coat room that was in the hallway separating the kitchen and living room. He turned back around, lowered his head. I can't tell you, Daddy, he said, sounding rather disappointed. He hopped up to the kitchen table, looking defeated, and started eating his toast. I won't lie, I got kind of freaked out. I peered into the hallway, into the cloakroom. Nothing seemed amiss. It was dark, as it needed a light bulb, but nothing out of the ordinary. My wife's words ran through my head. This was a good thing. That night, he was rather tuckered out from his day at the park. My wife and I were excited to have a full night together and were going to make the most of it, eating junk food in bed while watching a movie, something we hadn't been able to do since our son was born. Suddenly, all the fizzy pop hit me, and I got up to go to the bathroom. I hopped out of bed and made my way to the bathroom. I thought maybe I'd check on our little man and his friend on the way. I placed my hand on the doorknob, and my blood ran cold. Before I got a chance to open the door, I heard tap, tap, tap. It sounded just like nails on wood. I cursed myself for having always taken the elevators as I struggled up the center stairwell. Luckily, there was the constant ringing in my ears from the fire alarm to drown out my heavy breathing and the pounding in my chest as I climbed ever higher. Damn these safety protocols, I mumbled to myself. Whose idea was it anyway to have elevators shut down in the midst of an emergency? Emergency? My ass. There's no one up there, I all but knew, as the voice over the intercom continued to belt out, repeatedly, Code red. Pull station activated. 8th floor. PDS unit. The PES unit, or pediatrics, as known to most, had been abandoned for over a decade, left to rot in the memory of what had happened there, closed out of respect, or lack of funding, or an abundance of superstition. I didn't know, for sure, and didn't much care. All that currently mattered to me, security officer number 25, was that I was now coming up on the 6th floor level, and I was almost there, and thank God, I could reset the faulty God-forsaken pull station. The fire department would come, do their investigation, and I could go back to my midnight lunch that was getting cold. But just then, I heard something. What was that? A familiar, and yet at the same time, foreign sound. Out of place, somehow, like a knocking, but not. I slowed my ascension, stopped to listen, attempted to direct my hearing upward and disregard the echoes of voices and confusion from below. The sound was getting closer, just above me now, speeding up and becoming more erratic as the unknown pinging descended the stairs. There it was, a ball, red, making its way towards me, losing momentum, barely rolling now down each step. Immediately, my mind went to that which I had ignored over the years of patrolling the unused and empty, tomb-like halls of the PDS unit. Stories of events, of reports of, and I dare use the word, hauntings, on the 8th floor of Mercy Health. There had been, reportedly, sightings of a little girl, which the powers that be at Mercy had dismissed and chalked up to overworked and sleep-deprived nursing staff. I had, in the past, had no real choice in dismissing the matter myself, for if I was gonna believe that nonsense, it would have interfered with my willingness to walk those dark halls at night, alone, especially alone, as I was now, catching the ball in my hand and feeling the realness of it hit home. "Is there anybody up there?" I cried. Hello. No answer. Inching further up the stairwell, ball in hand, I could now see the door to the 8th floor. Funny thing, I couldn't recall ever actually seeing this door before, having only been to the 8th floor via my elevator security clearance. Yet somehow, I remembered it. The heat of the door handle, the odd flashing of the badge reader, had I dreamed of it? Was I dreaming now? I questioned, as I edged through the door, slowly. The thickness, the oppression of the air, as I closed the door behind me and stepped onto the children's unit, told me otherwise. Fighting my urge to turn tail and run, I pushed forward, led only by my flashlight, searching the shadows for the faulty pull station. I was hot, so hot, it had to be my imagination running away itself. After all, the HVAC system, one of the only things still working on this floor, was providing its familiar, low-grade hum, pushing out its cool, 68 air. But still, it was hot. So, incredibly and unnaturally, hot. In all the ghost stories, weren't people colder? Wasn't there a chill in the air? Jesus, as if awoken from a reverie, startled, and jolted back to my senses like I had been asleep for days. I just stood there paralyzed as the tiny thing in the corner began to raise and stand upright. It had been there. I had seen it upon entering the room. Huddled in the corner, looking like nothing more than an old pile of clothes and blankets. It was coming towards me, slower at first, but faster now. Oh, God. I dropped the ball and the flashlight, losing control of my bodily functions. I was completely at the mercy of this thing that floated up to greet me. Mercy Health, I thought, please, mercy, as the thing opened its gaping mouth. Further and further it seemed, until the whole monstrous entity turned in on itself, and all that was left was an overwhelming heat that seeped inside me, filling up my lungs with the taste of sulfur and ash. Please, it wasn't me. I would have found you. That was several days ago. Apparently, my then lifeless body had been found by a couple of firefighters, and although I didn't regain full consciousness until yesterday, their life-saving measures had, obviously and regretfully, been successful. I say regretfully because now I'm stuck in this dreaded hospital bed with only the memories of that awful thing in my head to keep me company. I can't leave. I can't. The doctors won't discharge me, and if I leave Alma against medical advice, I would forfeit any workman's comp that I might qualify for, and, even worse, insurance coverage. Ooh, I suffered a cracked sternum from the damn chest compressions during my resuscitation process, and I'm still recovering from extreme smoke inhalation, although, reportedly, there was no fire. However, I was told that the fire alarm on the PES unit had, in fact, been pulled. By who, or what, has, officially, yet to be determined. But I know who it was. It was that little girl. Frances, I believe was her name. 10 years ago, during a fire on the PES unit, she had somehow been forgotten in the panic, lost in the fray. They say another security officer, at the time, had found her, huddled in the corner under a clump of blankets, still clutching her little red ball, but it was too late. She was dead, and now I'm trapped here, with an oxygen tube up my nose and a throat so swollen from her smoke that I can barely eat, much less talk. And if I could talk, what would I say? I've already met with risk management and am now awaiting a site consult regarding the incident. I can't tell them, I just can't. They'll think I'm crazy. And the last thing I need is to be admitted to the behavioral health unit. I have to get out of here. Oh God. Why didn't they just let me die up there?